Hi there, Fat Cap Chef here, and I'm going to show you today how to make a multi-seeded brown bread. And it's actually easier than you think and delicious. So, what have we got? Some simple ingredients. I've got a bowl. I've got 500 grams of flour, and I have mixed 100 grams of strong white bread flour with some wholemeal flour. I've actually used spelt, which is a little bit heavier and has really lovely taste and flavour. I've got 1 little tablespoon of butter that I've chopped into small pieces. I've got some salt. I've got some yeast. I've got some multi-seeds. In this case, it's a combination of linseed, pumpkin, and sunflower. And I've got 300 mils of lukewarm, tepid water. So if you can stick your finger in it without it feeling too hot, then that's the right temperature. And we need it warm because that then activates the yeast, so it helps it to prove. So here we go, very straightforward. Put in my flour, then about half a teaspoon of salt. Mix them together so the flours and the salt are mixed in. Then I add my butter, spread it around a bit. There we go. Fingers in and just rub that together so that the fat, which is the butter, it's only a very small amount of fat here, is rubbed into the flour. This takes maybe, I'll tell you what, less than a minute to do this. So only a few bits of butter to rub in. There we go. Just kind of basically squeezing the bits of butter between your finger and thumb to make a kind of breadcrumby type texture. It's a bit like you would do to do shortbread. But of course this is just normal bread. Once you're happy that you've got most of the big bits rubbed in and not in great big lumps, which is what we want to avoid, then we're good to move on to the next step. There we go. So I'm happy with that. Rub the old fingers. Now I've got my yeast. I'm going to put 3 teaspoons of yeast, just a little bit. And then I'm going to put, I've put quite a lot of these in, so I do 1, 2, 3, 4 little handfuls, and then I've got a broad-bladed knife. Just going to mix this together so everything's now combined. There we go. Then make a well in the middle and start adding my water. I add about just over half of the water, then using a broad-bladed knife we mix it in, and I sort of use a cutting motion. This is just to bring it together. It comes together pretty quickly because we're going to create the dough off this. There we go. It's already starting to come together in good lumps. Make sure you get down the bottom so you get the loose flour. Add some more, about 300. So remember, you need hand warm tepid water to get that yeast going, so when we prove it, it will make your dough rise. This is going to be enough to make obviously a 500 gram loaf, which is a normal loaf tin size. Whoops. There we go. I'm going to use the rest of my water now. If it gets too wet, just add a little bit more flour. Once we've got it mixed together using the knife, we're going to get our hands in. It's not too sticky, this one, so there we go. So I'm going to bring this together now in the bowl. I find using one hand is the easiest way. I'm going to roll it and gather up the bits that are in the bottom here. Give it a squeeze, and you force the inside slightly damp bits out, and that allows you to pick up flour down the bottom. It's already starting to come together into a dough. The harder you squeeze, the quicker you'll pick up the bits. You end up with almost a clean bowl once you've got through this stage. There we go. So I've now collected all that up. As you can see, there's my bowl. I'm now going to drop this onto my surface. You don't even really need to flour this. The less flour you can use, the better on the outside of it. I'm now going to knead this for about 10 minutes, well actually 8 minutes of kneading, so it goes smooth and elasticy. So I just keep folding, roll, heel of the hand, push down. The firmer you can be, the better. And this is just activating that yeast, breaking down some of the gluten and getting it ready for a proof. So I'll be back in 8 minutes. Okay, so I'm back. I've now been doing that for about 8 minutes, and I've now got my lovely smooth bread dough. I've got a plate. You just use a working surface. I've got some light dusting of flour on, just stop it sticking. I'm going to drop it in there, and then I'm going to cover it with my bowl so I can see what's going on. And I'm going to leave that for about 45 minutes to an hour. You're looking for it to double in size, and then we'll be back. Okay, so this was about 45 minutes. You can see it's in fact more than doubled in size. I'm just going to give this a quick knead, very basic. Don't want to take too much of the air out, just the big bits. There we go, so literally almost kind of folding it back on itself and recreating the ball. Okay, I'm going to pop that back under here again and leave it for another 15 minutes. Okay, so that's now had another 15 minutes, and you can see it's pretty much back to where it was. So I'm going to turn this out on a lightly floured surface. I've then got my loaf tin here. It's a standard £1 loaf tin, and I have greased the inside of it with some butter. So just put a bit of butter and some foil, give it a good bit of greasing, and then for the base I've put a couple of blobs of butter in there, and then I've cut a piece of grease-proof paper, same size as the base, pop it in there, and you put a couple of blobs, it will hold it in place. It just makes it easier this to get the loaf out. So using it as a kind of template, I'm going to put it here, move this back so you can see what's going on. That gives me a rough size that my loaf's going to be. So now I'm going to, just using my knuckles, just stretch it out like this. Don't want to do it too much because otherwise it takes all the air out and we will have a very kind of compact loaf. So there we go. So now I'm just going to roll this up from the narrow end. There we go. And a seam at the bottom. I'm going to put a little sprinkle of seeds here. Just going to roll the top of the seeds into it like that. Push it down a little bit. There we go. Press them in. I'll pop this into my loaf tin. I'm now going to leave this back into the warm area, and that's going to be around another 45 minutes. So I'm going to cover it with a tea towel and let it rise again, and then we'll be back. Okay, so this is now proved, and you can see it's come up at the top of the tin. It's filled the tin up nicely. It's going to pop into a preheated oven, 200, I guess about 7 I think, so 200 degrees for 30 minutes, and then we'll have a look. Okay, so that's been in the oven now for just 30 minutes. It will be super hot when it comes out, just so you're aware. So one of the ways to get out of the tin without taking the seeds off the top, I used to use a pronged knife and slip it in, and then you can kind of lift it out really easily. And you can save this piece of greaseproof paper, just take it out, it'll dry off and you can use it again. Don't want to waste anything. So there we go, and there we have our bread. Let me just cut a slice so you can see what it looks like on the inside. There we go, look. Loads of seeds spread through it. It is absolutely delicious. I'll let that cool for maybe 10-15 minutes, and the first slice is fantastic with some fresh butter on it. So if you want to see more, just subscribe. It's free, and you'll just get updates when I publish. And if you want to see more of this, you can obviously look at the website www.fatcapchef.com, or one word, where we're adding content on a reasonably regular basis. Back soon.